With 4 more pads, smoother knobs, faster project loading and sample import, plus a revamped sampling and sequencing workflow, skip-back sampling, and 16 gigs of internal storage. The SP-404 Mark II is the long-awaited refresh to the legendary rapid-fire beat machine. I'm Jake Jenkins from Sweetwater, and this is the SP-404 Mark II portable sampler from Roland. Instead of turning to a grizzled SP-404 expert, we thought it'd be fun to give the SP-404 Mark II to a total noob for one evening and see what they come up with. So let's meet Sweetwater's SP-404 Mark II guinea pig. It's me. I'm the guinea pig. So when it comes to new gear, I'm usually a read the manual first kind of guy. But under the guidelines of this challenge, I didn't have the luxury of time to do that. So I threw caution to the wind, along with the quick start guide. After I read it, of course, I couldn't help myself. And I did indulge myself about 30 minutes of YouTube tutorials on the OG 404. What can I say? Habits. I'm going to walk you through my experience, but first, a few notes on the look and feel of the SP-404 Mark II. In hand, it feels great. It has a solid chassis, the pads provide a nice amount of resistance, and the action on the encoders is very smooth. But more importantly, it just looked cool hanging out in my studio. There's something about the SP-404 Mark II that brings back memories of sizing up classmates' graphing calculators back in high school. You know what I'm talking about. And this one's the best. It's like a top-of-the-line Texas Instruments TI-84. And same as your old high school calculator, it takes batteries, so it's totally portable. To get you started, Roland packed the SP-404 Mark II with a huge selection of curated samples, and they all sound fantastic. Now that said, this is a linear wave sampler, so I felt obligated to sample some waves linearly. Fortunately, this was pretty easy to do. Here's the process I used. I connected the second pair of line outputs from my audio interface to the line inputs of the SP-404. I loaded a Pro Tools session with stems from a few older projects and some in-process songs, and I chose a selection of kick and snare one-shots from my sample library. To sample a track into the SP-404 Mark II, you just hit record. The SP-404 will prompt you to select a sampling destination from one of its 16 pads. Empty tracks light up red to indicate that they're available for recording. If no tracks are red, that means all 16 pads already contain a sample. But no worries, you can easily delete a destination to make space, and you'll likely need to do that once you start resampling your sounds to process them with the SP-404's collection of effects. But more on that in a sec. Once a destination is armed for recording, hit the record button again and start playback from your DAW, record player, or other source. Hit record to end, and voila, you've created a sample. Now that the sample is captured, you can trim the top and tail using the primary encoder, or as Roland calls it, the volume knob. I was impressed by how precise I could make the chops using the zoom waveform function, which is also controlled by the volume knob. It's easy to see where the transients hit. And you'll notice that the value knob and the top 3 control knobs smartly map themselves to different parameters depending on the task you're doing. Okay, so let's get back to resampling because this is a lot of fun. The SP-404 Mark II includes 37 built-in effects, from distortion, reverb, and tape delay, to a cassette emulation, several glitch effects, and even the iconic Roland Juno 106 chorus. You also have a multi-mode resonant filter available with variable overdrive. Obviously, this means there are a ton of options for transforming your samples into unique sounds. By resampling processed tracks, you can assemble a diverse palette of both wet and dry samples. Let's take a listen to some of the sounds I created on my first spin. I started off with a kick and a snare. I added a super distorted low kick with some delay. I also did a bass loop, some guitars. We have a hi-hat loop, and I created a backwards bell patch. Generally, I sequence beats in Pro Tools using a combination of drawing notes on the piano roll and entering MIDI data with a keyboard controller. And to be honest, when I use a MIDI controller, I'm usually not too concerned about the performance, since I'm likely going to quantize the parts to some degree. That was not the case with the SP-404. Since I was triggering both loops and one-shots simultaneously, the SP-404 was really dictating the groove, and it felt much more interactive than sequencing on a piano roll or roughly banging out a rhythm on my keyboard. The experience was more like jamming on a guitar than programming a beat, and in just a few hours, I was able to cook up a handful of sounds and sketch out an arrangement. The only problem was that I was having such a good time that it was hard to pull myself away and call it a night. But that's what morning coffee is for. And without further ado, here's my slightly dodgy but earnest inaugural beat.
Yeah. I love it.
To me, the SP-404 Mark II is an ideal creative tool. It's simple enough so that it's fun to play right out of the box, but it's deep enough that I'm excited to explore all of its numerous features. After just one evening session, I found myself encouraged to understand every facet of the SP-404, including its limitations. And I was already looking forward to finding ways to turn its limitations against itself and go even further into new creative dimensions. That's the beauty of a hardware sampler, and it's what makes the SP-404 so cool. Hit us up in the comments if you'd like to see an in-depth tutorial on the Roland SP-404 Mark II, and if you're a seasoned SP-404ist, let us know which new features of the Mark II you're most excited about. Until then, don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed the content, and ring the bell to keep up to date on all things Sweetwater. We'll see you next time.